Good morning to one and all present here. This is Dr. A.J. Bernita, Assistant Professor of English, Fatima College, Madurai. In this video, we are going to see in detail a few of the literary terms. So the first literary term that we are going to see is personification. So personification. Okay, so making into something into a kind of person. Now that's called as personification. So personification is actually related to metaphor. So like how we use the metaphor to compare one thing with the other, we use personification too. And this word personification is derived from the Greek term prosopophia. So the term personification means an inanimate object or an abstract concept is spoken of as though it were endowed with life or with human attributes or feelings. So in general we can say that some non-living things or some kind of abstract things like love, kindness, if we are going to make that as a person, how will it be? If we imagine and if we consider that as a person, that is called as personification. For example, we find Emily Dickinson talking about death. So death is an abstract concept, but she personifies that as a person who is taking away the life of the others. So like that, sometimes when we see the rain, we consider it as a person and we talk to it. We take the plants and we talk to that. So like that, we consider them as person. So such kind of things is called as, that technique is called as personification. So here we are going to see some examples also along with it. So the first example that we are going to see is from Milton's Paradise Lost. In book 9 we have when that is in the scene where Adam bit the fatal apple. When they ate both of them, Adam and Eve. When they ate the fatal apple, we find Milton is describing how nature was then when they did this mistake. He says that sky lowered and muttering thundered, some sad drops wept at completing of the mortal sin. Okay, so the sky is lowering. We cannot say that sky is lowering, and but it's like a human who is lowering and muttering thunder. That is muttering means the way of speaking in a little bit noisiest way. So like that, thunder is speaking, and then we find some sad drops. The raindrops are described as sad. They are carrying the feeling of sad, and the sky is weeping for the mortal sin. So here the sky is made is personified as a human being, and it is muttering as well as it is shedding the sad drops. Okay, so this is called as personification. So we have another example here. So this is taken from Keats' poem The To Autumn. Okay, so in the second stanza we find Keats personifies the season autumn to a woman carrying on her rural course of that year. Okay, so like a rural woman who is just doing her work. Like for example, in the rainy season she will be doing some work, in the summer season she will be doing some work. So like that, when like that we find he personifies at autumn, the autumn season, which is a abstract thing, to a woman carrying her rural course. And the next third example that we have here is from Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poem Aurora Lay. Okay, so in Aurora Lay she writes that then land, then England, oh the frosty cliffs looked cold upon me. When she is talking about England as a nation. Okay, we cannot say England as a nation. It's something but which is abstract. Okay, when we talk to each of the person, we can say I spoke to an Englishman, I spoke to an English woman, they looked cold upon me. But here she personifies the whole of England to be a particular human, and we find they are looking cold upon me. That is, they are staring at her, they are looking at her in a strange way. So this is called as personification. So the personification of abstract terms, such kind of abstract terms like kindness, death, when we are personifying such things, which was very common or standard in the 18th century poetic diction, and sometimes all the writers or poets, they made it as a thoughtless formula for their works. So whenever they are writing a poem, they will be at least having 2 or 3 personification. They saw to that they had 2 or 3 personification in there. So like that it became a formulaic manner. And there is an example given here, that is Coleridge cited an 18th century ode which celebrated the invention of the inoculation for smallpox. Okay, smallpox was a very dangerous disease during the 18th century, and vaccination, the inoculation for it was found during the 18th century only. And when that inoculation was invented for that such a kind of dreadful disease, we find there is a ode that's written by someone else, and that's cited by Coleridge. And he in that they say that inoculation, heavenly made descent. Okay, so inoculation, that medicine is being described as a heavenly made, heavenly angel which has descended to earth. So God has sent this to earth. Okay, so this is another kind of personification. And now we move on to the next term called metonymy. Okay, so metonymy is a Greek word. It's derived from a Greek word which means a change of name. Okay, name which is already there but it's changed. Okay, so that's called as metonymy. So this is a literal term for one thing is applied to another with which it has become closely associated because of a recurrent relationship in a common experience. Okay, so for example, when we have certain things, for example, when you say a teacher, you always associated with a woman. When you say a nurse, you always associated with the woman because it's related to them for a very long kind of years, or you have been exposed to only such kind of persons. So like that, when one name becomes synonymous to the other, that is an object that's related to that, we find it is called as metonymy. That is called as change of name. Okay, so here we have the examples for it. The first one is the crown. So whenever you have the words like crown that's being represented in the examples, that in Shakespearean dialogues or anything, the crown said so, like that, if it is being means, it's not the crown that's speaking. Crown or the scepter, that refers to the king. That is, the king is speaking. For example, the subjects bowed to the crown means it's not bowing to the crown that's kept on the head, but it is giving respect to the king. Okay, so next one is Hollywood. So whenever we think of Hollywood, we think it's just the film industry. Okay, so for example, Hollywood directors. Okay, so we just make it as a synonymous, like that. Like Hollywood, we have nowadays Bollywood, Collywood, like that we have many other words. So it means the film industry. Okay, for example, the Collywood stars are meeting, means Collywood means the entire film industry stars are being having a meeting, like that only it sounds. Okay, so it doesn't mean the like it has become synonymous. Okay, it's synonymous for the film industry and the people. And the next example is like, I have read all of Milton. I have read all of Milton means you have not read Milton, that is the person, but you have read all the writings of Milton, all the works that are written by Milton. And then there is another one example from Shakespeare's As You Like It, when he talks about the attire, a typical attire that can signify the male and female sexes. So doublet and hose ought to show itself courageous to petticoat. Okay, so doublet and hose, they are worn by the male members, and he says that it should show itself courageous to petticoat. Petticoat means it's worn by female. Okay, so we here Shakespeare brings in these two things, but he is using that for persons. Okay, so change of names. Petticoat is a dress, but here he is referring to the female person, so it's a change of name, so that is called as metonymy. So the same thing, the metonymy is described by Roman Jacobson, the 20th century critic. He says that metaphoric is vertical, that is comparison. When you are metaphorically comparing something, it's vertical comparison, and metonymic is horizontal dimension. Okay, metaphoric means like this, vertical. Horizontal means like this. Okay, so in application to many actions or many aspects of the functioning of English, we find it's being referred to like this. The next literary term that we are going to see is synecdoche. So synecdoche is derived from the Greek word which means taking together. Taking together. So it is like a part of something is used to signify the whole thing. Okay, a smaller thing or a part of a particular thing is used to signify the whole for synecdoche. So the first example is 10 hands. Okay, so 10 hands, as we have seen, synecdoche refers to the part of a particular thing is referred to as the whole thing. Okay, so here we find 10 hands refers to 10 workers. For example, if we say we need 10 hands to complete this construction work, means it means that we need 10 workers to complete the job. It doesn't mean 10 hands, each person has 2 hands, so only 5 persons hands are needed. It's not like that. 10 hands means 10 workers. Same way, 100 sails stands for ships. 100 ships. Okay, so sails refers to the cloth part that's hanging in the ship. We find when for example, when we say we found 100 sails coming in the Pacific Ocean, when we say so, it means 100 ships are coming over there. Okay, so sails means ships. And now in a current scenario, like for example, we use wheels. Wheels doesn't represent the part of the vehicle, but it represents the whole automobile itself. We don't say lorry, bus like that, but we say four-wheel. Okay, a four-wheeler, like that we say. So in the current slang, we find wheel refers to the whole of the particular vehicle. Okay, and then we find in literature. Okay, so when we come to literature, we find again we have Milton in his Lycidas. He compares the corrupt greedy clergy to blind mouths. Okay, so blind mouths. So blind mouths. How can a mouth be blind? Does a mouth have an eye? No, it's not like that. Blind mouths refers to these clergy people. Okay, so the clergy persons are referred to here as blind mouths. And next we move on to the next type of literary term, that's called as hyperbole and understatement. So first we will see hyperbole, and then we will see the opposite of it, that's the understatement. So hyperbole is derived from a Greek word which means overshooting. Okay, so from the word itself you would have guessed now. So overshooting means it's a bold overstatement or an extravagant exaggeration of fact or possibility. So when you are exaggerating means it's a very simple thing, but you are talking it as if it's a very high thing. Okay, for example, in the colloquial language they used to say 5 ரூபாய்க்கு நடிக்க சொன்னா 50 ரூபாய்க்கு நடிக்கணும். So like that. So something that is very bold, it's an overstatement, it's an exaggeration. A simple thing will be exaggerated to a very higher level. That's called as overshooting or hyperbole. And this can be used either for serious effect, producing a serious effect or a comic effect. Okay, so both these things we can use these contexts. And the examples for it can be seen, literary examples can be seen here. So one perfect example is Iago says gloatingly of Othello. Okay, Iago, in Othello is the highest in the highest hierarchy, and Iago is his minister. But we find he is gloatingly talking about Othello, that's saying not poppy nor mandragora, nor all the drowsy syrups of the world shall ever medicine thee to that sweet sleep which thou oughtest yesterday. Okay, so when Othello has slept very well, that is the he is ironically he's seriously telling that this that sleep, that after he has got after that particular day, the previous day, how he has rested, he is talking it in a very exaggerate manner. That is, Othello had a peaceful sleep, that's all, but we find he is exaggerating into a very elaborate thing and saying not poppy. Poppy seeds will have this effect of arousing drowsiness. Mandragora, similarly, it's also a plant which influences our sleep. Not all the drowsy syrups of the world can give you such a kind of sleep. That is, not all the medicines or whatever things we, if you have all, even you drunk that, it will not give you such a kind of sleep, but you slept very peacefully. So just it's a small thing, but we find Othello is exaggerating and he's saying it in an ironical manner. Okay, so I hope you have learned certain literary terms through these videos, and we will meet again in the next video. Thank you.